Hello guys, once again welcome back to another Android app development tutorial. Today's episode we are going to learn about how to listen for preferences change in your app settings page. So here I already create an Android Studio project that contains a settings page. I will show you the settings page available in this project. Open the settings page. So here the settings page contains some preferences. Here we have two list preferences, text message limit and multimedia message limit. I open the text message limit. I change the value into 150 messages per conversation. And here you can see that particular change is not reflected in the summary of this preference. The same case in the case of the second list preference also. So this is one example why we need to listen for the preference change. So when user makes some changes on preferences, we have to update the summary. So here I am going to show you how to listen for the preference change and how to change the summary of a preference when user makes some changes. So in this project we have only one preference screen. This is the preference screen. Okay, so here I use a preference activity preference fragment for display this settings page. Here is the preference fragment. So here we need to listen into these two list preferences. First I copy the key for these two list preferences. I put it here. We need that one later. Okay, so first here I'm going to create some variables. Final string preference SMS limit and use this value. Now I create another variable called preference MMS. Here it is MMS. Okay. So in order to get the preference change, you have to implement an interface called onSharedPreferenceChangeListener. So first here I am going to create some variables for that particular interface. On shared preference change listener, I name it as preference change listener. Okay, so you must implement this interface in your preference fragment or preference activity. So in my case here I use the preference fragment. So if you are working on a preference activity, you have to implement this interface in your preference activity. Okay, so now we can initialize that listener interface. So here is preference change listener. So here you need to override only one method called onSharedPreferenceChange. Here this method has only two parameters, a shared preferences object and a key. So when user makes some changes of any preferences, the system will call this method. So you can identify the preference by using the key. Okay, so now we need to register for this listener. So you have to register for this listener from the onResume method of your fragment or activity. Also you have to unregister from this listener from the onPause method of your activity or fragment. So first here I am going to register for this listener from the onResume method of this fragment. Okay, so get preference screen dot get shared preferences, and you have to call this method called register on shared preference change listener and pass your handler. Okay, so now we need to unregister from this listener from the onPause method of the activity or fragment. Here also the same thing, get preference screen get shared preferences unregister on shared preference change listener and pass your handler. Okay, so now we can handle the situation. So when user make changes on the list preferences, first we have to identify the listener preference. So if key dot equals preference SMS limit, that means user change the SMS limit from the preference screen. In that case, we need to modify, we need to update the summary of that particular preference. First we have to get the preference and it has SMS preference. So here you can use this method called find preference and pass the key. Okay, so now we can update the summary of the preference. We can call this method called the set summary. So first here I'm going to get the value of the particular preference. So you can get the value from the shared preferences object. So shared preferences code get string, specify the value, specify the key for it. Now specify the default value, messages per conversation. Okay, so this is in the case of SMS. Now we need to handle the case of MMS. Here it is MMS limit. Here also this is MMS. Okay. Okay, so here we successfully implement a listener for the preference change. Now we can test the project. So I run the project. Okay, go to the settings page. First I'm going to update the value for the text message limit. Here update the value into 300 messages per conversation, and here you can see that change is now reflected in the summary of that preference. Now go to the multimedia messages. Here I change the value into 150 messages. Here also you can see now that particular summary is updated. Now I go back to another activity. Again I came to the settings page. Now here you can see now the summary is reset into the value available on the preference XML file. So here on the preference XML file we set some summary. Here it is. So this summary will override the value available on the shared preferences. So now we need to find a solution for this also. So the solution is you have to set the preference summary from the onResume method of the fragment or activity. So now from the onResume method, here I am going to get the preferences. So preference, SMS preference, find preference, here it is, preference SMS limit. Now set the summary for the preference, set summary, get preference screen, get shared preferences, get string, pass the key for it. Now specify the default value, messages per conversation. Okay, so here we update the summary for the SMS. Now we need to do the same thing for MMS also. So here I modify that one into MMS. Here it is MMS. Okay. So now the project is ready. So first I'm going to remove that application from this device. So I run the project again. Okay, now I go to the settings page. So now the text message limit, I modify that one into 150. The changes now reflected on the summary. Now I change the multimedia message limit into 300. Here also the change is reflected on the summary. Now I remove this application. Now again I open that application. Now we can check the settings, and here now we retain the summary for the text message limit and multimedia message limit. So this is how we listen for preferences change in your app settings page. I hope you understand the concept. For getting more Android tutorial updates, please subscribe this channel now. If you have any suggestion or doubt, please specify that one in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.